Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Now for global business updates, Rotus Oddiri joins us. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, Dr. Abati. Ayo, welcome back. Good morning to you.
Good morning,
to all our viewers out there. We begin, of course, with China. China, of course, facing industrial output was just released in China, and the property sector is still weighing on the economy. So very quickly, industrial output on a year-on-year basis for the month of May coming in at plus 5.6%. The forecast was for 6%, so it underperformed the forecast. You can see April is at 6.7%. So that, of course, shows that there's been a bit of a slowdown there. The real estate is still pretty much impacting the economy. New home prices were down 3.2%. That is in they call it the tier 1 cities like your Shanghai's and so on. So and Beijing. New home prices down 3.2%. That is for May. For April, it was down 2.5%. January through May, as far as property investment is concerned, that fell about 10%, double digits. Residential property sales down 30.5%. So a big drop there, weighing in on industrial output. If you look at fixed asset investments in China, for the January through May period for this year, up 4%, but underperforming the forecast. 4.2% was the forecast. Your January through April period was also 4.2%. Retail sales, that's kind of, showed some positivity there. For May, 3.7%. The forecast was for 3%, so it beat the forecast that the market was expecting. April, 2.3%. So at least the Chinese consumer has some money in their pocket. We go to Serbia, where Novak Djokovic is from. He's recovering from his knee injury at the French Open. They've greenlit, at least the president, Vučić, was speaking to the Financial Times over the weekend. That's President Alexander Vučić. And it looks like they're going to He's reversed course on a lithium mine. Yeah, we're talking mining again. A lithium mine that Rio Tinto intended to build in 2018. It's worth about $2.4 billion. It will be one of the largest lithium mines in Europe. Now, if you look at a summary of what happened, basically, it was halted in 2022 over massive protests. The environmentalists were saying that it was going to cause, issues with the pollution and health and so on and so forth. So I think he was elected in 2014, or was it 2016? So because of political pressure, he kind of pushed back. But since that time, his party has gained more seats in parliament. It looks like, folks, he's able to push forward in terms of the clean energy side of that lithium mine. Because if you look at it, 58,000 tons of lithium per year, it would meet 17% of the EU's electric vehicle production. And according to the president, build about 1.1 million electric vehicles a year, and would meet about 90% of Europe's lithium needs. So you can see how important it is because of where we're going with the electric vehicle movement across the world. So, and then Rio Tinto also put out a statement as well. I think they sent it to Reuters. They said, we believe the Jadar project has the potential to be a world-class asset that would act as a catalyst for developing an electric vehicle value chain in Serbia. So again, the EV movement keeps moving on. We go to Nigeria. We'll round off there. Inflation was released on Saturday by the Bureau of Statistics. I mean, to be fair, it's the 15th of every month. That's where inflation comes out. So now there's a divergence here. So year-on-year inflation, if you take a look at the numbers, headline coming in at 33.95% from 33.65% across the board for every subsector. You will see an increase year on year. Food inflation 40.66. For everybody who was trying to buy rams over the weekend, there was a lot of complaints about how the price. A ram today costs as much as a cow cost a few years ago. Core inflation, that is when you strip out the more volatile food and energy, 27.04. Urban inflation 36.34. Rural 31.82. All rising. If you look at the charts, just to chart it out and look at the year-on-year trajectory from when the president came into office, May of 2023 up until May of 2024, you can see the increase there. However, if you go to month-on-month inflation, right, you will see that there's been a deceleration. So rather than look at the numbers, if you just look at the chart, if you go to the month-on-month inflation chart, you will see the initial rise from May all the way through to about, what was it, October, and then no, actually August. So from 1.94% month on month up to 3.18% in August. It then decelerated to 1.73% in October. And then you see that rise again in the month on month chart all the way up to 3.12% in about February. But since that time, on a month on month basis, you've seen inflation decelerating to 2.14%. Still, we talked about this with Joe Biden last week and how in the US the numbers look good, but the people don't feel it. So it's kind of the similar thing here to where, yes, month on month is decelerating. You can say, you know, monetary policy might be working in that regard, but does the average Nigerian feel it? You can now turn to, and happy Eid, by the way, to all our viewers, the cost of Iran. So that's our update for today.
Right, Rotus, you see, I think people like you and analysts like you have been calling for a review of the inflation basket. I think now I really see it. How can you tell me on God's earth that it was just 40.66 for food inflation from 40 point something, from 40 point, I think 53 that it was. I mean, food inflation tripled by many percent, from 40.53. Food inflation tripled in the space of 1 month. Rotus, in the space of 1 month, we had the tomato catastrophe, which also increased the price of other vegetables. So I think the inflation basket should be increased and should be looked at again, should be rejigged. Honestly, I think the modeling should be looked at again. Also,
Rufai, good morning to you. Sorry.
Yeah, morning. A very important trend I'm seeing is even when you say month-on-month deceleration is happening, look at rural inflation, and that's my pain, Rotus. Rural inflation was the only outlier that month-on-month increased. When you juxtapose the figure of rural inflation, 1.92 to 1.94. And that is suspect because you are supposed to have a better living condition as regards access to farms in rural areas. So why is it that food is increasing in rural areas? Rotus, there used to be a Nigerian parlance back in the days that when things go bad for you in Lagos, at least go back to the village because you know you can't be hungry in the village. Because you have lunch. So, but why is rural inflation increasing? I think those are the questions. The reason too is not far-fetched. Do you know that this 615 we buy, it is only for the urban centers like Lagos and most parts of the island? And I hope you know, Rotus, they've also added extra 10 naira. I went to the first station. They've added extra 10 naira to petrol price covertly recently. From 605 now, it's now 615. So, in rural areas, if you go to juxtapose my village around Udugbulu, fuel is being sold for 780. So, energy inflation is rampant in the rural areas. They don't enjoy the subsidies. These are the challenges. I've been hearing next person. I think Ozzy wants us to go on. So, Ayo, take over.
Okay, thank you very much, Rotus. I'll just look at the inflation numbers as you talked about. If you look at the key headline inflation drivers, one of which is food inflation. And one of the things we talked about a number of times is that, number one, we've seen a monetary policy drive to tame inflation, including raising of basis points. And maybe it's too early to begin to see the impact of that in terms of the numbers. But one of the things that we must also highlight on a day like this is the fact that there has to be commensurate fiscal policy, fiscal policy to support monetary policy. If not, we'll continue to see the numbers rise. I know and I want to believe that on the fiscal side of things are moving, but there's a critical aspect, especially when we look at food inflation, is security. And I bring security to the table again this morning because we don't seem to be having a deep conversation around that. It almost seems as if it's a foregone conclusion, so we don't really talk about that, especially with regards to farmers going back to their farms. And this is a challenge that we need to sort because we can continue to raise basis points. We can continue to have higher interest rates and we'll see inflation go high if we do not deal with the fundamentals. I believe that these numbers just raises or emphasizes that point for that, which is something that we've talked about a number of times.
Okay, if I may start with inflation in Nigeria, this was a subject we discussed at great length yesterday on another program, This Day Live, the Sunday Talk Show. And I had as guest Johnson Chukwu, and I had on the panel Nameka Obiariri, both of them economists and financial analysts. And there was skepticism about even the correctness of these numbers. And there are many who hold the view that what the National Bureau of Statistics has released, that food inflation may even be higher, that headline inflation may even be higher. The only one perhaps that you can consider a bit will be core inflation, which is 12.27%. However, other economists also commenting on this have said we need to deal with certain fundamental issues, creating an enabling environment for productivity within the Nigerian economy. We are adopting policies. We say we are, taking a restrictive policy, increasing rates, increasing MPR. MPR is 35%. Where would the banks get money to lend to people? At what rate would they lend to people? So the business environment itself does not encourage productivity. And that's one of the fundamentals that government has to address. Okay, the latest company that has left now is Diageo. Although they say the Guinness brand will still be in Nigeria, they are handing over, business to Tolarama of Singapore. And Tolarama is not a brewer. They're just, vendors, people who run commercial operations. Before now, GSK left. Other companies have been leaving, and it's become a fulfilling prophecy simply because the environment is not good enough. On food inflation, the issue is about security. And this is why also, the subnationals can come in. Because if people cannot access their farms, they can't produce. And it's not just about farms, it's about the cost of transportation. It's about the cost of energy. Just as all of this affect, the big businesses, it also affects the ordinary man there. So what is required is a rethinking of the model, as Rufai used the word. What is it that we're not doing right? And what is that alignment that we have been talking about between the fiscal side and the monetary side? You can roll out all the policies, increase MPR, adjust CRR, adjust corridors. That's just plain economics. Unless we see concrete results, the question we will keep asking is that why are the various measures by the CBN, why are they not working? That is the big question. As for China, yes, it looks like there's moderate reflation going on in China, but the big challenge still has to do with, problems within that world's second largest economy. And what are the problems? Demand is not so high. The property sector is still in trouble. And that's why you find, that manufacturing that did well in April has gone down in May. The same thing with the mining sector. So the challenge that they face in China now is to provide more stimulus, to find stimulus and to also encourage an increase in consumer demand so that reflation will move away from the base of inflation, low inflation that they have. But beyond that, the People's Bank of China this morning released a report on the key policy rates. And what China is doing is to keep those key policy rates, steady. However, it's not as if they have many options available to them. But we'll see when additional data are released on Thursday, and then maybe towards the end of the month, when the People's Bank of China decides whether to cut interest rates or to keep them again steady. Well, thank you very much, Rotus. We'll see you again tomorrow morning.